Hey you guys, welcome to another episode of our Irish Country Life here in the west coast of Ireland. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Nikolai, and together with Chris, who's doing the filming, and the little man Scooter, who's sitting here waiting patiently for some chicken later. Chicken? Yes, you know the word chicken, don't you? Yes. Today, I'm going to be making for you a really lovely, very easy Christmas cake. We will make the Christmas cake today, and then we will leave it and we will come back and we will almond paste it later. Normally I royal ice my Christmas cakes, but this year I've decided against it because I find that with the royal icing, when you try to cut it into nice slices, the royal icing just crumbles and breaks, and also breaks the cake as you're cutting it. Although I do love the royal icing, we're not going to do it this year. So what I am going to do is I'm going to show you, because everybody gets terrified when they're making their Christmas cake, of how to line their cake tins. I'm going to make two. The recipe is for one 10-inch cake, but I find it makes the cake very deep. For slicing, I prefer smaller slices of Christmas cake because it's so rich. And instead of having to cut it and then having to cut it again in half, I think if you make this recipe and you just divide it between two tins, keep one for yourself and give the other one away, or you can just half the recipe to make one for yourself. I always make one for me and one for my sister Raquel. So I'm going to start by showing you how to line your tin. It's very easy. First thing you need to do is you need to get two squares of your greaseproof paper, the size of your bottom of your tin. So literally place the bottom of your tin on the greaseproof and mark around it with a pencil. Okay, just like so. And then we're going to cut that out, and that gives us one. We're going to double line our tin because I feel it's important for a heavy, rich fruit cake because of the amount of fruit and the length of time it's in the oven and the cost of all the ingredients that go into it. It's a shame for it to burn. So it just makes more sense to double line. After all, it's only a piece of greaseproof paper. So there you can see that's your square, and you need 4 of them. So you need 2 of these for each tin. Okay? So I will continue to cut out the 4. Okay, so now I've cut the 4 squares for the bottom of the tin. I'm going to do for around the sides. And to do that, I'm going to use sheets of greaseproof. So I've got 4 because you're going to need 2 for each tin. You may find that your greaseproof is not cut into sheets, it's just on a long roll, in which case you can kind of gauge the size of your tin. And if you make a mistake and it's too big, you can cut it. Fold it in half. Once you fold it in half, fold it over again a quarter. Okay, so Chris will need to come in so I can show you this. So that is your square of greaseproof paper, and we've literally folded it in half. And now we're going to fold it back again on the folded side like so. Okay, put a good crease into it. Okay, and then what you're going to do is you're going to take your scissors and you're going to cut up as far as the fold. Okay, it doesn't have to be accurate, it doesn't have to be fat, skinny, anything you like. You just need to cut it, and that will allow for when it's going into the tin for it to go around the sides. So I'm going to show you. So your first square goes in your tin like so. Okay, and that's your base. And then your piece will go in like that. Okay, and your bits will stick up, but that's fine because when you put your second sheet in of your square, it will sit down on top, and then the weight of your mixture will keep it all together. So I'm going to go on now and do number 2. So let me show you that again, because this is the bit that everybody gets scared with, and it's really, really very easy. And trust me, to line your cake tin properly is what will save your cake, because if you don't, you could end up with a very, very burnt outside of your cake, and that's a waste, because you'll have to cut those pieces off or give them to somebody you don't like when they come for tea. Okay, but let's not encourage you to do that, because you shouldn't really have people you don't like coming for tea. I don't. I only invite people I like. Okay. So again, just snipping along the side. Okay. Be a bit slower than me. I don't want any fingers inside my Christmas cake when I call to visit you for tea. Okay, and then we're going to continue on with this round, so we should complete the whole of the tin. Okay, and we have one more piece to go, so we will do another one. Is it just me, or is everything in life getting shorter skimpier and more expensive, because that's what it seems to be. I'm sure I used 2 pieces of greaseproof paper to line this cake tin last year. This year I'm using 3, which means the squares have got smaller. So anyway, let's not get stressed about that. Let's just do our 3 pieces. Like I said, the more greaseproof paper you're using, the more you are protecting your cake. So it really, really doesn't matter. And like I said, also the weight of your mixture will push all of this into the corners. You will make sure that happens by pushing down on your cake mix as well. And there you have it. That is your cake tin lined. Okay, you've left it quite high up the edges, and the reason for that is as your cake is nearly cooked, you can fold the edges over the top to cover the top of the cake to stop it from getting too brown in the oven. And that was very, very simple. Okay, then you put your next piece in on top, and that will hold all of that in place. Okay, and Chris can come and just zoom in there and have a look to show you that beautifully lined cake tin. Okay, so the cake tins are lined and set aside. Now I've had to get myself a big basin because all of these ingredients have to go in and you have to give it a good mix. So this basin was the only basin I could find in the shop that was big enough to be able to do all of this. So I've had it for 2 years, but I need a new basin. If anybody's got any recommendations on where I can, because as you can see, this bowl is pretty full just with the fruit. So let me run through what's in here. In here, I've got 750 grams of sultanas, 750 grams of raisins, 500 grams of currants, and 200 grams of cherries, which I chose green, red, and amber just to put a bit of color throughout the cake. When you slice it, it looks nice. And all I did with them was I washed them, I halved them, and I quartered them, and I dried them before putting them in here. I also put in here a glass and a half of spiced rum and a glass of brandy. And I've left that for the 3 days, similar to the Christmas pudding. I've left that for 3 days to absorb and infuse all the flavors together. I've also put the spices in there. That's something I've never done before. I've always sipped them in with the flour, but I wanted the spices to infuse with the fruit. So I thought maybe the flavor might be stronger. We'll see how it goes. So in there, I've put 1 teaspoon of nutmeg, 2 teaspoons of mixed spice, and 1 teaspoon of cinnamon. And that will all be written in the comments for you, all the ingredients. So also in here is the rind and juice of 1 lemon, the rind and juice of 1 orange, and 1 eating apple, which I have just peeled, cored, and sliced in there. So now I'm going to pop this fruit into this basin, which is very heavy actually. Okay, and then I can get rid of 1 bowl from the table. And I'm just going to show you the lovely mixed peel that I picked up on my travels when I was traveling in Turkey from the spice market, the Grand Bazaar spice market there in Istanbul. And it's really, really lovely. It was the colors that popped at me as I was walking past, and I thought, oh, Christmas cake and Christmas pudding. I need to get some of that. So I'll just let you have a look. And there's everything in here. There's cherry, there's angelica, there's orange, mango, everything in here. And it's just really lovely and colorful. So that now you can see in here is all the fruit, okay, which has been soaked in the alcohol and the spices, and the smell is just absolutely, it just smells of Christmas and everything you associate with Christmas. So all the fruit is in there. I'm going to get rid of this bowl. And then I'm going to run through the rest of the ingredients. So in this bowl here, I have 500 grams of butter, softened butter. I have in here 8 free-range large eggs. I have in here 200 grams of toasted chopped almonds. 2 tablespoons of treacle. And I have 500 grams of dark muscovado sugar. And I also have in this bowl 650 grams of plain flour. So I will start by creaming the butter and the sugar together, and then I will add the eggs in there, and then all of that mixture will get put in with the fruit, and the flour will go in at the end. And it all just gets stirred together, and once it's all combined, it will go into the tins, and then we will pop them into... I'm going to cook my Christmas cake in my gas oven today because it's a gas mark 1. So you can preheat your oven to either 140 degrees or gas mark 1. I'm not going to do it in the Aga today because the Aga oven can be quite hot and I can't regulate the temperature fully for this. And because it's in there for so long, I'm going to do it in the gas oven. Okay, so I'm going to start by creaming my butter and sugar together. Start off nice and slow so you don't end up with butter and sugar all over your kitchen. Okay, so that's my butter and sugar mixed together and combined until light and fluffy. And now I'm going to add into that, I'm going to add in my 2 tablespoons of treacle. Again, this is more for color. Give it that nice dark color. So 2 nice tablespoons of treacle. Okay, so now in here I'm going to add my eggs. So now the eggs are combined, we're going to add the flour. This is flour I've already sieved. Okay, so the flour is all incorporated. Now we need to add that mix to the fruit. A lot of people use a big mixer. If your hands get tired, then you can use a big mixer. I prefer to do it by hand, and that way I can judge. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add my chopped almonds into the fruit. And they're all nice and crunchy because I toasted them. Okay, and once they're all in, I'm going to... It's going to get heavy now, so I'm going to change to a metal spoon. And I'm just going to distribute those nuts so that they're evenly mixed in with the fruit. Okay, now another ingredient which doesn't actually go into the cake, but it's very, very important for when you actually finish, before you put them in the oven, is a bottle of holy water. Everybody should have a bottle. And what we literally do is I bless both the cakes and then I bless Chris also, just to make sure that he's very good to me. Very important ingredient. Don't put it in the mix. Okay, so that's incorporated, and now we're going to start adding in our flour, butter, sugar mixture. So just literally put 2 or 3 big spoonfuls in there to start with, and then you can mix that through and it will loosen up with the moisture from the fruit. See now why I needed such a big basin? It's already going all over the place. Okay. And this also would be far too big a Christmas cake to make one cake. So that's why I suggest you divide the mixture into 2, or you can half the ingredients for the mix to make one smaller cake if you so wish. Okay, you can see now it's starting to get incorporated. All the ingredients are mixing together. Look at all those lovely colors in there from that dried fruit. Amazing. Another couple of spoonfuls in there, and then it's just a case of getting it all mixed together. You don't need to video anymore, Chris. Okay, so now I'm putting the mixture into the tin, and as I'm putting the mixture into the tin, I'm pressing down so I'm getting it right into the corners, because that's what we want. We want to push it right in so that those corners go right, so you have a nice square cake. Okay, and then you just sort of level off the top. It will level itself in the ovens, provided you haven't left a huge mound in the middle. And that just looks amazing. So that's one done. Okay, and we'll carry on with our next one. And again, the same thing, in and right to the corners. And again, just leveling up the top as we go. And I think this is the perfect amount, because once you've got your almond paste on there and your icing as well, it will give everybody a generous size slice, but it not being this thick, it will be more or less this thick. So I think it's better, and it's better for cutting as well. Okay, and so once this is done, these will go into the oven and they will go in for 3.5 to 4 hours. And I will check them after about 3.5 hours and just stick a skewer in the center and make sure it comes out clean and dry. And if it does, they are done. After about 3 hours, I will check them just to make sure they're not going too brown on top. If they are going a little bit dark on top, I will cover them with a square of greaseproof paper, which I have just cut some more pieces here just in case. Now, you may not need to use it, but you may. So they're there just in case. You can always use them for something else later. Okay, and so that's the cake. Okay, so the cakes, after 3 hours, I opened the oven and I had a look at the cakes and I decided I'd put some greaseproof paper over the top just to stop them from browning any further because I like the colour of them at the moment. So I then left them in for another half an hour and then I switched the oven off after 3.5 hours and I've left them in with the oven turned off. And now I'm just going to test them with a skewer and make sure that the skewer comes out nice and clean, and it does. So these cakes are actually cooked. So I'm just going to cover it and I'm going to leave them in the tin, and I'm going to leave them in the tin overnight. Don't try and take them out of the tin until they are completely cold and set firm, or otherwise they'll start falling apart on you. And that's our wonderful Christmas cake, and the house just smells amazing. Yes, Scooter, I know they smell wonderful, the cakes. Okay, you guys, so the cakes have spent all night cooling and they are completely cold now, so I'm going to remove the cake from the tin. I have a loose bottom tin, so it's just a case of doing this. If you don't have a loose bottom tin, then you will have to put your plate over the top or your cooling rack over the top. And literally I'm going to slide it off because I still have my extra layer of greaseproof paper. Okay, now I'm going to remove the greaseproof paper from around the outside, and just so you can get to have a look and see what the cake looks like. Okay, so I have removed the greaseproof paper from the outside and I've actually left it on a piece of greaseproof paper, and that is because I'm going to put another 2 layers of greaseproof paper and then 2 rows of tin foil, and that's the cake wrapped. And it's going to be wrapped and kept. I'm not going to feed it any more alcohol because I feel that it has enough alcohol within the fruit and it's been soaking for a few days. So we're going to leave them for about a week, and then we're going to almond paste. We're not going to use marzipan. I'm going to make my own almond paste. And because I'm not white icing them, I'm going to toast the almond paste in the oven and they will look nice, and we will put a nice decoration over the top. So that's something new for me this year, because normally every year I royal ice them, but this year I've decided I'm not going to. Okay, so our cakes are done, and now it's time to make the almond paste or marzipan for the top of the cake. Originally I was going to make the almond paste and then just toast it and leave the cake at that, but my sister has said she'd like the cake white iced as well, so we're going to go ahead with that plan. And so I'm going to make the marzipan or almond paste in here, and I've got 175 grams of caster sugar, 280 grams of sifted icing sugar, 450 grams of ground almonds, 2 eggs lightly beaten, and 1 tablespoon of orange juice. And all of this is just going to get mixed. And then I'm going to pop in 1 tablespoon of Moroccan almond extract. Mix it all together, bring it together with my hands, quite a messy job. Bring it together with my hands, and then we're going to wrap it and we're going to leave it for a couple of hours, and then we're going to roll it out and we're going to dress the top of the cake. This will need a couple of days to dry out on the cake before we can put the white icing, because if we put the royal icing on top of the wet almond paste, the oils from the almond will come through and it will soil the white icing. So that's what we're going to do. So I'm going to go ahead now and I'm going to start mixing. I'm going to add my Moroccan almond extract into my eggs. It will look in this bowl like I have a lot more ingredients than what I've just called out, and that's true, and that's because, if you remember, I'm going to be icing 2 cakes, because the Christmas cakes that I made, the one recipe I divided between 2 tins. So if you're going to do 2 cakes as well, you will need to double this amount that I've just told you. Okay, so after about 5 minutes of working it with my hands, it's come together nicely and it's formed a lovely big ball of marzipan. And It tastes way better than anything you could buy in the shop. So there we have it. I'm going to leave that to rest. I'm going to get my cake out. I'm going to put some apricot glaze over the top of the cake and the sides, and then we're going to start rolling this out. And the good thing about homemade marzipan is it's very forgiving. If we get a crack or we get a tear or we get a bit that's not enough, we can mold it with our hands into the shape of the cake. I really wish you could taste that because it tastes divine. So much nicer than anything you would buy. Okay, so I have here my cold cake, my cake board, my almond paste marzipan, and I have a bowl with apricot jam, a little bit of water which I've boiled in the microwave just to make sure that when I put it on the top of the cake that the marzipan sticks. And the reason why I boil it is to stop it from fermenting and changing the flavour of the cake later on when it's on there. Okay, so I'm going to put a couple of spoons of this apricot jam onto my board, and that's literally going to just make sure that my cake stays on the board and doesn't wibble wobble everywhere. Okay, so my cake is now sitting on the board, and now I'm just going to give it a generous coat of the apricot glaze, and that's just like I said, so that the marzipan sticks to the cake. It smells absolutely amazing, this cake. Okay, so we're going to now put the cake aside, and we're going to get on with rolling out the almond paste. So I'm going to take literally half of this mix, cut it down the middle, okay? I'm going to put that back in the bowl, and I want to roll out a square this size. So this is the base of the cake tin, the 10-inch cake tin that I used, okay? So I'm going to get on with doing that. Okay, so now I've rolled out my first piece with plenty of icing sugar. I'm going to check if I've got enough for the size of the top of the cake, and I do. So I'm going to get my knife and I'm going to literally cut around my marzipan, and I've rolled it out to about the size and thickness of a £1 coin. But if you prefer it a little bit thicker, just be careful because you may run out of marzipan to do the sides. And some people will find it challenging doing the sides, in which case I would suggest just do the top with the almond paste marzipan, and then you can put your icing down the sides over the top. Okay, so I will slide this onto here. I will bring my cake over to this side of the table because it's quite clean. Now I've already brushed it with the apricot glaze, as you can see, and I will literally do a bit of magician work here, and I will do that. And there we have it. And that is the top of our cake, almond pasted or marzipan. And like I said, it's quite forgiving. So if you have any little cracks or splits, you can just work it with your fingers. Now I'm going to get on with rolling out the sides. And again, I will use the tin to be able to measure how long the strip should be. And I will just measure with the knife how deep it needs to be as well, and roughly gauge it. Okay. So I've done 3 sides, so there's 1 side left to do. And I've literally, like I said, I've just used my bottom of my cake tin as a guide as to how the size I need. So I'm going to put the last side on, okay? And then, like I said, the almond paste marzipan is very forgiving, so you can just make sure it's nice and tight to the cake so that it's stuck. And then you can just pinch it together here at the top to make sure that the top and the sides are well sealed together, and the same down the side. Because we're going to white ice this, we don't need to be 100% perfect because none of that will get seen. And that's it, my friends. That is the cake marzipan. Now we need to leave this for 2 to 3 days to dry out so that the oils come out, they dry from the marzipan and they don't seep into the white royal icing. So that's the marzipan stage done. The next stage is the white royal icing, which I will do in a couple of days when this is dried. See you soon. Okay, you guys, so welcome back. And the Christmas cake has been drying out for 3 days. The almond paste or homemade marzipan, whatever you like to call it. So it's nice, feels nice and dry. And now we're ready to do our royal icing. So the recipe for the royal icing, I will put in the caption below, and it's very easy. And this next stage is very simple. So don't be scared. if you're worried about icing a cake. With this method, it's very, very simple. And we don't want to ice it too thickly. I want to keep the icing a little bit thinner than I would have normally done in previous years. And that's because I find that if it gets too hard, it cracks and it crumbles the cake when you're trying to cut through, which was why I was kind of debating whether to do it or whether not to do it. But my sister wants it, and what she wants, she gets. So there we go. I'm sure Chris would have wanted it as well. So he's not here today, so it's just me filming, and Scooter is here with me, and he's not very impressed because it's quite late and he wants to go to bed, but we're not ready to go to bed yet. We need to ice the cake. So I'm just going to start putting a few blobs of the royal icing on the top of the cake. And just start sort of working your way out to the edges. The nice thing about having the almond paste or marzipan underneath is that you're not dragging the crumbs from the fruit cake with you as you're working your spatula over the top. So, like I said, we're going to keep the icing nice and thin. We're not going to make it too thick. And just spread it all over the top. And then we're going to do all down the sides. What are you growling for, Scooter? Okay, and so we're going to just bring the icing down the sides, and it will stick to the marzipan almond paste. So once we've covered the cake in the royal icing, we're just going to create a very simple little snow effect, and that's literally just using your palette knife and just push down and pull up on your icing, and that will just pull it up into little peaks, and that will just create like a lovely little snowy effect. Always a nice way of easily icing your Christmas cake without having to get into polishing and smoothing and all of that technically challenging stuff. We don't like technically challenging stuff. We like easy. Anything that's going to make our life easy. So there you can see I've just pulled it up into little peaks, and you can have as much fun as you like. You can do it as dramatic as you like or as subtle as you like. A little bit more dramatic because it tends to kind of fall back in slightly as the icing relaxes. So just into those nice soft peaks. Lovely. And all I'm going to do now to finish off this beautiful Christmas cake is I'm going to put a piece of lovely dark green, emerald Irish green velvet around the cake. And I'm going to secure that with a little bit of icing just on the ribbon so that it holds it in place. Okay. They're not working for me because the icing hasn't gone onto the ribbon. There we are. Now, okay. So that's our ribbon. Nicely in place. Okay. And then finally, our beautiful crown. Ta-da! That's it. Pure and simple. If you have other decorations, you want to put a little bit of holly, a little Merry Christmas sign, whatever you want, stick it on there and have a whole lot of fun. Now I'll just pick it up and let you see. And it's very heavy. Okay, you guys, so that is our Christmas cake all done and complete. I hope that you've enjoyed watching this video. It has been a video of many stages, but that's a Christmas cake for you. Please do try it. It really isn't that complicated. And thank you very much for watching. And with all our love here from the west coast of Ireland, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe and the notification bell so that you never miss another vlog of mine again. Or Scooter's. Until next time, bye bye.